mentioned that the places where there is vulnerability, I mean, the places you had to describe are the places where the road is least improved. And I wondered if the risks there are simply due to the location in relation to the rivers, or whether they are because they are relatively unimproved, i.e. they don't have drainage to modern standards and that kind of thing. In other words, is the vulnerability there partly because of the age and condition of the road, as well as its location in relation to the watercourse?
I think the incidence of accidents in the stretches that I'm aware of are in the main due to the interchanges.
Oh, in terms of
so that's where the accidents arise, because
yes.
There's some classic stretches where there's always accidents.
There are.
And so that's the increased incidence of accident is going to be the main factor in terms of pollution. It's not the age of the road, in my view.
No, sorry, I meant whether the age of the road was something that made the risk of spillage and runoff more acute because there isn't proper drainage on the road, for example.
Yes, I think we
or is that not a factor?
I would imagine, and I have no firm evidence, but I would imagine that the majority of the drainage on along the A12 is what's called French drains. They're stone drains. There may be pipes through them, but certainly they're stone drains. And the water soaks into there and generally runs away.
Yes.
There will be some areas where there is more positive drainage, pipe drainage.
Yes.
But because of the age of the system, those drains are probably not very efficient these days.
In this area, and given what you've explained about the incidence of crossings of rivers and watercourses, would any improvement programme typically be equipped with pipe drainage?
I think we would.
Or would this be part of the standard specification that you would ask to have incorporated?
What we're trying to do is to control the runoff from hard surfaces, and so a pipe drainage system wouldn't be conducive to that. We want something which is going to regulate the flow and slow it down.
I see.
So storage would be the answer. Now this can be done with the sustainable urban drainage techniques. There are systems which involve a stone base underneath pavias, for example, on car parks where the water is retained, and that does allow some biological breakdown of oils and the such like. So the quality of the water is improved, as well as slowing down the flow. That the slowing down of the flow prevents the flooding lower downstream. But the other one of the other techniques used in sustainable urban drainage is to actually hold the water in lagoons and allow that to be released more slowly than otherwise will be the case. So I think we want obviously a system which is going to free the road of water, so it doesn't get dangerous to vehicles or have to be closed, as we found on at least one occasion in the not too distant past, but not get that water to the river too quickly.
Yes,
so there needs to be probably some storage system, and probably the most efficient storage system will be a lagoon, but that of course is quite land hungry and is an expensive option. There may be, I was thinking about it coming down on the train, there may be ways of actually storing water under, say, the hard shoulder. If the concrete there had a structure which allowed the water to be held, still strong enough for vehicles, but it held the water there and gradually released it, I wonder whether that's a solution. I haven't patented that idea.
Do you find the Highways Agency are generally cooperative in responding to those sort of concerns you have about speed of runoff and speed of
they tend to be. They certainly
rivers and
yes. We've recently been involved with I think it was the A14 investigation, and there was a lot of work done on the environmental impacts there. I haven't seen the outcome of it, but I think it is often that they are certainly responsive to our suggestions, but I think cost obviously comes into play on some of these
Sure.
things.
Just a final point on flooding. You mentioned here that the flooding is basically it's the inability for rainwater to clear. It isn't anything to do with the rivers in this particular locality.
No.
And you mentioned October 2001 partial flooding of the road at Kelvedon, and follows a 1 in 200 pattern, 1 in 200 years. Is it not the case that we're being advised by your parent department, indeed possibly yourselves, that the effect of climate change is to increase the frequency of 1 in 200 year events, coming down to 1 in 50 or 1 in 25?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
And is flooding, is flooding due to rainwater an example of that?
I think the information, the evidence that we're getting certainly in recent years is that rain is coming down faster over shorter periods, at times when perhaps it's less expected. And so the intense rate of rainfall causes its pathways to be obstructed, so it can't get away as quickly as it would otherwise. And if there are, if there's a prolonged period of rain, then the ground becomes saturated, so it doesn't absorb the water either, and the runoff rate is increased, and the water gets into the channels. Now, you know, there's debate going on as to whether the natural channels are kept clean enough. You know, are the ditches cleaned by the farmers like they used to be, and are the drains being cleared by the local authority? Well, I couldn't comment on that, but you know, they're all factors that need to be brought together to help deal with water. And certainly the increase in rainfall that we found over recent years is suggesting that there is a change to the weather pattern at the moment, and it is causing problems.